Hello, and welcome to Tech to Tech presented by KYZEN, where we will explore common cleaning questions and answers. Let's get started. I would like to introduce KYZEN's own Shawn Varney.
Hey everybody, welcome to our Tech to Tech session. We'll be covering cleaning no-clean flux and paste on this series. This is part 4 of 6. The topics that I'll be talking to you about today is going to be about misprints. 2 topics on misprints really is what about a misprint and is this a problem? So this was the series that we've gone through so far. You've already heard parts 1, 2, and 3, covering 4 with you today, and then you got 2 more after this that will wrap up the series of 6. So what is a misprint? So for me, a misprint's an error in a printing process that was not by design or planned. What does a misprint look like? So you'll see on the screen here that you have a kind of a stencil on your left-hand side and you have a board on your right. On the left, we put a stencil with a UV dye tracer in it. So that's why you kind of see it highlighted. You'll see the black holes are not clogged. And if you look in the little tiny holes, the circular holes right there, that is where it's going to be clogged apertures and whatnot. And on a board, it could look like bridging or not enough, too much paste, kind of stuff like that. So how do you detect a misprint? Well, there's lots of ways, right? You have the visual inspection where you got to get your head in there and really take a look at it. You can pull it out. You can use a magnifying glass, a microscope. You can get a little more technical with it with an SPI, a solder paste inspection, or an AOI, an optical inspection. That's usually after reflow. But your best way is going to be your SPI is for detection. Causes of misprints. So raw paste misprints, you can have a ton of different issues here with it. So you can either have too much paste, as you can kind of see in your picture there, it's globbing out. You can have not enough paste, where you're coming across screening and you're filling the void, but not in the bottom compartment area of that. You get an old dry paste. You don't want it to clog up any kind of apertures just with a big lump. Misalignment can be an issue, as either your squeegee or your blade might be offset and you might not be filling the holes, but make sure you have the right sizes on there. Pressure step to the wrong wiping process. So let's just say you're pulling a blade or a squeegee across and you might be too much pressure would be scooping out some of that because you're actually going in the void or that crevice. And if there's not enough pressure, again, you're just not filling it all the way. You can have solder balls that can leave streaks across your stencils and not fill in certain areas. You can have faulty stencils. Maybe the webbing on the outside of the stencil is too loose or it's too worn out. You can have it bent. You can have all kinds of things with your stencils. Improper board support's a big one on this. I would emphasize that you definitely do a proper board support, whether it's pneumatic. The best way that I found for misprints is going to be a solid structure under that. It takes a little more setup time, but that works a little better. You have squeegees are bad or worn out. You can have bent blades if you use a blade style system. Wrong paper on the under stencil wipe process. With this, you definitely don't want to go cheap on your paper because it will cause you to use more papers or it will cause you more misprints. So cheaper is not always better on your paper. The under stencil wipe chemistry does not match correctly to your no-clean. So you see in the pictures here on the left-hand side that you have some raw solder paste and just an IPA formula, and that is just not dissolving it. If you look on the right here, you'll see that it's fully dissolved, and that will be easier to clean the bottom of that stencil area. So going on the reflow side B, after it's already come out of the oven. When people clean their misprints in a stencil cleaner machine itself, the stencil cleaning process can have challenges when you want to clean side A and B. Raw paste on side B is cleaned, but then side A is only partially cleaned because there's not enough pressure usually in the stencil cleaners. There's not enough temperature, there's not enough agitation and mechanical action in there. So for partially clean boards, well, what happens? You have a lot of things. You have a risk of residue being left on the board, and then you're going to cause another misprint. So you make sure you clean them. Your board cleanliness testing It could be on failures, whether it's a ROSE testing, an ION, or a SIR kind of testing facility. You'll have failures on that aspect. Formal coating, it's not going to stick. White residue, there's a reaction on the board. If you don't fully clean, you can have that. Dull solder joints. Just remember, not all visual damage you can see, right? There can be a reaction on the board. Just because it looks clean to the eye doesn't mean it is. Manual cleaning can cause solder balls and put paste in areas that are hard to clean, places that you don't want them to be. So if you're scraping it or wiping it with a cloth or whatnot, and you're pushing that, let's just say, into a BGA or a QFN or in another hole that you didn't want it to go, that becomes very hard to clean in the manual process. We don't recommend, manual cleaning for side B. I would stay away from it. No clean is either you clean it all the way or you don't clean it at all. There is no kind of in-between grounds there. You just lead to a lot of issues. If you have multiple reflow steps in your process, rework can be more challenging, and the board process just becomes harder to clean. So is this a problem? Yes. So 60 to 85% of your defects is related to your printing process. You must dial in each step to make sure the process is the desired outcome. And I just listed a few, maybe 10 steps for you that just need to be checked. Work with your machine manufacturer or your chemistry provider. They can help you set up a machine and kind of go through this process too for qualifications. Each one of these causes of misprints can lead to much larger issues down the line. Challenges of no clean misprints. Board washes, whether it's an inline wash, batch, or stencil cleaners, need to have higher pressures and mechanical agitation to thoroughly clean the boards. Incorrect cleaning may lead to quality issues on a completed board over time. That dendrite growth, the failure shorts, and such. High number of misprints can waste time and money, right? You gotta have that throughput on your assembly line. Higher number of misprints can waste material. That just goes back to time and money as well. Nano coatings on the stencils may wear away with time or incorrect chemistry too. So you want to make sure you're not having a chemistry that's attacking some of that nano coating. There's different types of nano coatings, and there's manually applied, in your shop or at the factory. The factory is always going to be better. OSP coatings on the circuit boards themselves, they can be compromised and wear away. Make sure your chemistry is compatible with that too as well. So in conclusion, are misprints a problem when using a no clean paste? Yes. Review your printing process, make sure you get it dialed in, right? Identify the cause. Don't just chase the problem. Take action to correct the print issues with cleaning. Note that challenges with side B, misprints and cleaning, you want to make sure you're going to have challenges on that side too. Establish your checks and balances, who's responsible for what, whether it's an operator, an engineer, or maintenance. A clean stencil and optimized process will increase your yields and ensure reliability. Go through a couple of frequently asked questions here. Is manual cleaning good enough for my no clean flux and paste? I break this down into two different answers here. So number one, cleaning a stencil, you can manually clean, but you really should run it through a wash process to ensure there's no clogged apertures. Number two, if you're cleaning a board, I wouldn't recommend it. There's too many risks involved in rework to cause more problems down the road. Just wash it through a good process. Any bench type work that you're doing for rework or something, just have a good aerosol can, have your board proper way, rinse down in motion, have a good technique behind it. Question two, can nano coatings prevent my misprints? Well, yes. With solder paste transfer efficiency is really what you're looking for. So think of it as wax on your car. And when water gets on there, it doesn't really stick to your car. You don't want it to go in those places. So when you pull across a nano coating, you don't want the paste to really stick to the stencil. You want it to stick to the board. And that's where that nano coating comes into place. Question three, what's the best way to prevent my misprints? A well-tuned in process is really what it comes down to, and a great operator that can help too. Set up at the beginning or your qualification is very important for the long-term success of that. Question 4, does maintenance play a role in this? And I say absolutely. You want to make sure that the machine's well oiled, it has good greased rails, that nothing's kind of binding or jumping. You want to make sure it's clean inside and then there's no fog hanging around that can dump down on it. No air leaks, so you ensure your proper pressures are actually there, not just on a setting. And clean your filters, right? So the machine filter, so it's not just circulating dust in there and fine particulates. And with that today, that's really what I have for you, and I'll turn it back over to William.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you guys for tuning in to this Tech to Tech session. If you'd like to discuss this topic further or have any questions not answered in the session, please contact your local Kaizen regional manager or send an email to tech@kaizen.com, and we will have someone follow up with you as soon as possible. Do you want to have exclusive access to future content sent directly to your inbox, or do you know someone who would benefit from these sessions? If the answer is yes, just go to tech2tech.kaizen.com and fill out that subscription form. And if you like this video, be sure to follow us on our social media platforms for more expert cleaning content.